thought that I would start a channel about my interaction with Buddhism. I've been a Buddhist for many years now, and my initial interest was set off by Vajrayana Buddhism, or Tibetan Buddhism as it's more often called. I do several Vajrayana practices daily, the most significant of which is a tantric practice I received from the Dalai Lama in Washington DC. However, in recent years I've discovered more about Theravada Buddhism, which is the Buddhism of the elders, and is practiced in Thailand and Cambodia, Sri Lanka, Laos, Myanmar. So it's still a living thing. And very important to the lives of the people in those countries. There is still the interaction between the lay community and the monks, because the monks go on alms round every morning and are given food by the local people. So there is a real connection between the two. And of course, when someone dies or other important things happen, a monk always goes along, or a group of monks, to bless the proceedings. So what I want to talk about in a series of videos, perhaps I'll do it every day, perhaps not, is my interaction with Vipassana meditation, which I find very useful and is something which I do regularly now. Some people say that the Vipassana meditation, which is practiced regularly by so many Westerners, is really not something recommended by the Buddha himself, but is based on commentaries, particularly the Visuddhimagga and the Abhidhamma. I'm not really qualified to comment on that. I don't know. I have read the Buddha's suttas about meditation, and it's true that he seems to be talking more about a kind of union of shamatha and vipassana together, rather than being separated, which is done in this practice I'm going to talk about. But on the other hand, even if that is true, it doesn't mean that the practice is valueless, because it's based on Abhidhamma and the Visuddhimagga. Those commentaries were themselves developed from the Buddha's suttas, and later forms of Buddhism like Mahayana and Vajrayana are even perhaps further away from the words of the original Buddha. Very rarely study the words of the original Buddha at all. It's mostly commentaries. So my point is, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad teaching, because it's not exactly what the Buddha said. You can certainly follow what the Buddha said, and you will be sure in that case that you are following the teachings he made. But it might seem reasonable to also do practices which are developed on the basis of what he said, rather than the actual recommendation he made. All of these practices were developed in good faith, and they may help you, so that is the most important thing. So that's the introduction. What I'll be doing in this series of videos is talking about my practice with Vipassana meditation. I've done quite a bit before, but I'm involved with an intensive course at the moment, and I'll be talking about my practice from day to day. Yesterday was the first day. I would say that it started quite well. There was nothing new. I've done it before. It's not easy always. having to observe your thoughts. You're not involved in commenting on the emotions or the ideas or the thoughts that come up. You're just examining them, not examining them, just observing them, really. And that's interspersed with walking meditation, where you just concentrate on the movements of the feet. I believe that the point is that as one examines or as one sees the way in which the objects of consciousness come and go, eventually one has a light bulb moment and realizes that everything is impermanent, gives rise to suffering, and is uncontrollable. And at that point, it's possible to become enlightened. So that's a long-term goal. It can be quite an exhaustive practice, because it's not like what they call jhana practices, where or the shamatha practices, where one is encouraged to simply let the breath in and out and experience bliss. It's very different to bliss. The Vipassana practice, you're seeing your emotions coming and going the whole time, pleasant and unpleasant, none of them stable, none of them lasting for more than a few seconds most of the time, or a minute. And it's rather exhausting and emotionally draining. But other than the eventual aim of enlightenment, it also can help you understand your own personality better. You see your attachment to greed and anger and delusion, and this can have a profound effect on how you behave in everyday life. So it's not just about some far distant end, it's also about improving yourself at the present time, increasing the mind's focus. So this is now the second day, and I'm about halfway through. It's still going well, I would say, but of course it is draining, it is tiring, emotionally draining. The more you do, the less probably comes up, but that may only be true for a particular day. If you do a lot of practice on a single day, then you will find that later in the day not so much is coming up. Hopefully, if you do it for a lifetime, you find that later on things are not coming up so much, because you are not so deluded anymore, and you're near to that point where you realize that everything is anicca, dukkha, and anatta. That's impermanent, gives rise to suffering, and uncontrollable. So the more you are able to approach to that, the more you will realize the delusion you have. And when your delusion is less, the greed and the anger that result from delusion are also less. So there are practical reasons for doing Vipassana meditation, and I would say on the basis of my experience that it works. The focus of the mind improves, and you can see your own weaknesses much better than before. You see the things that keep coming around again and again in your mind, and the things that keep tripping you up, and the things that other people see that you haven't been able to see because of the delusion. So I think initially it's a practice that can particularly lessen delusion. So I certainly would recommend such a practice to anybody who's interested, should really get involved. Time is short for everybody. Okay, thank you. So there are my initial thoughts.